Hi everyone, it's Peg, and today it is time for the March Mission Inspiration. This is my take on Mike Deacon's monthly challenge. It's a challenge group over on Facebook, and today's guest controller is codename M, which is Linda. And I wanted to do something in the color families that were suggested, which were the green, yellow, brown, and also we are to use the words for inspiration: spring, regeneration, germination, jump, or madness, and I chose spring. So the first step from Mission Controller Linda Simpson says apply pattern paper or tissue. So I had some musical tissue paper from Ranger Tim Holtz, and I glued that down to the page. And then I'm deciding to use things that I haven't had out in a while. The step number 2 says add thin coat of a suggested color. Well, my thin coat is going to be from alcohol ink, and I'm using actually 2 of the suggested colors because I'm using both a brown and a green and some alcohol and smearing that around on my page for the background. Now you can do this just by shaking out the alcohol onto your craft sheet and adding just a drop of the colors and then spreading that around on your paper. You want a matte coat paper, not something really porous if you're going to do this technique. And then I also mopped up the remainder on some tissue paper that I had just laying around. And then I decided I wanted to add a little more dimension or a pop of something on there. So I got out some copper mixative. And I don't know if it's just gotten old or what, but it didn't really look copper to me. It just looked kind of dirty. And, you know, okay, I was all right with that. I wasn't going to toss the page and start all over. It's just a journal page, right? So I left it the way it was and moved on to the next step, which says to use a stencil with the medium of your choice. So then I thought, well, okay, the copper didn't work out so well, so let me get the gold mixative out. And I got a Tim Holtz stencil and the gold in one of my tools and some felt, and applied that through the stencil onto the background of my page, just giving it a little bit more texture and adding a little pop of shimmer. Now if you use this stuff on your stencil, you probably want to use some alcohol ink to get it off. It will stain your stencils, and yeah, my stencils have been loved. You can see that my stencils are permanently stained, and I'm not too unhappy with that. It doesn't bother me. It's a tool. So then it says add a focal image. Well, I wasn't really sure where I was going with this, but I had this green clock, alarm clock, and I thought, well, you know, one of the colors is green, that should work. So I had fussy cut that and glued it on to my page for my focal image for number 4. And then it says use at least 2 rubber clear stamps. Well, before I do that, I decided I wanted to put some direction on the page. I'm thinking I need some motion going on, so I get some Sukwang tape and make some graphical marks like arrow or you know, it looks like it's pointing in a direction because I'm going to add more over there in the middle of my page, and I'm struggling getting the cover off of the tape. And then I go to my what are these? These are embossing powders from Emerald Creek. They have some lovely embossing powders, and I look over what I have and I figure out that I want to use that copper. I'm going back to that copper color. I'm saying copper's kind of close to brown and I want to use that. So I get the heavy copper and put it on that sequin tape, and that's going to hold it down, and then I'm going to heat set that, and it gives a real cool bumpy textural effect on the page. I'll give you some close-ups at the end, and you'll be able to see just what that does for my page. And I like the direction that that's going, but I also think that I need a bit more direction on the page. So I get some washi tape in a black and white, and I'm just going to, emphasize that directional arrow that I made with that copper embossing powder, and add that on the left-hand side of my page with a couple of stripes. Okay, so then I need to search and find some rubber stamps that I want to use, and the colors of ink that I want to use, and I'm going to use my archival inks since I have the alcohol ink in the background. And I find some browns and greens that I like, and some, not really image type stamps, but more textural stamps. This one is kind of like when you do a spatter paint, and the other one is like marks. And so I'm happy with those two stamps. And then the number 6, it says add marks with credit card, ATM card. So I get an ATM card, and I've got the ink out, so I'm just going to use one of those browns, and I'm going to add some marks to the background with that card. And then it says add a quote, title, or phrase. Well, I had this magazine page that said 2017 Spring Getaway Planner, and I'm thinking about travel and time to travel, and what time is it, and it's time for spring. And so I'm thinking, okay, this is very appropriate for my title or phrase, and so I'm going to punch that out with a round punch. And then I think, well, you need something to pop that up off the page, so I'm going to come back in with those same archival inks in the darker green and just highlight around where that circle is going to sit on the page with those colors. And actually I'm going to use several colors, and then I'm also going to reach for my pip pins, my big brush pip pins in a couple of different green shades, and do some shadowing. You can move this or blend this while it's still wet on the surface of your page, either with a baby wipe or with your finger. I'm just using my finger to get the effect I want, and so that's going to help lift that away from the rest of the background and make it stand out more on the page. And then I think, well, okay, you got to do the clock too, because it needs to be emphasized a little bit more too. So come back in with the pens and do the same sort of thing over there on the clock. Okay, so then I get a glue stick and some paper to put the glue on, because I don't want the glue everywhere, and just adhere that to the center of my page. Well, not really center. It's more on the right hand side. Rule of thirds. I didn't really want it in the center. I wanted it in the lower third. And then I'm thinking, okay, quotes. I really need to put more words on here since I'm thinking about travel, and I'm just journaling, about making time for fun and giving yourself a break, and what you need to do about travel, travel the world, see the sights, explore, all of those types of things that have to do with what I'd like to do about spring travel. Okay, so the last thing says add a frame or border. And, I didn't really want to put a border or frame on this, but I thought, well, what can I do to emphasize this? And in the meanwhile, I had these stamps out on my desk, and these are some old postmodern. They're not even in business anymore, but it had some things that were appropriate to my page, like time, and so then I thought, okay, let's just use some of those words as my border. So, I found some words that were appropriate: the traveler, destination, travel papers, point of origin, and I stamped those around the edge to create a border on my page. So that's about it for this month. If you're interested, be sure and join the Facebook group. We'd love to see what you want to create for this month. And I'll put some final pictures up there. And have a great month, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye for now.